Thank you so much, Alessandro. I actually can feel that. It's astonishing. The power of energy. Now, very briefly from me, I'm going to invite Jill back onto the stage to talk to us about what's going to happen next. Over to you, Jill.
Thank you so much. A brief introduction to a video that we've got coming up by Simon Anholt. If you haven't found out who Simon Anholt is yet, please Google him, go to TED.com. He's done 2 TED Talks, and he talks about the Good Country Index. He has spoken before at Collaboration Global. He's a government policy advisor. He's travelled the world in his job, and he's realised what's kind of wrong with the way things work, and that's when he developed the Good Country Index. And he wanted to be here today. And it was so lovely of him because he is a very busy man. He's working with high-end people. He's had lunch with Putin. I wish he'd had a bit more of a conversation a few years ago. But he said, if I can't be there, can I at least give a message? So we did a little interview about a month ago, and this is his take on the view of the world, the global world, and why the Good Country Index is a possible solution for that. Have you here, having listened to you many times. If anybody hasn't heard Simon's TED Talks, then please just go Google them and find them. They are well worth the time spent listening to those. But Simon, we move forward. Your TED Talks were some time ago. Life has changed drastically since we last had this conversation. We all agree and acknowledge that the world is in a pretty confused state, she said politely. Why do you think we've got ourselves into this? Just from your personal perspective, we've heard from other people's perspectives, but what's your sort of thoughts on how did we get here?
Well, there's so many, life is complicated, and there are a lot of people on this planet, a lot of things going on. And if you want to make a case to things going really well, you can do that, and I often do. If you want to make a case for things going really badly, that's easy enough as well. And likewise, you can make many different cases for where the problems are, at what level. So rather than try to claim that what I'm interested in is somehow fundamental or pivotal to the whole thing, all I really say is, look, this is my area, and this is the bit that interests me. Let's see if it interests you as well. And the bit that interests me is the way that countries behave. Because for the time being, whether we like it or not, humanity, those 7 to 8 billion people, are organised in a series of containers which we call nation states. That's the way humanity is organised. It's very far from ideal. It causes all kinds of problems. It always has done. It always will. And one day maybe it'll change. A lot of people have a lot of interesting things to say about maybe us being about
Simon Anholt, thank you so much for being with me today and being part of the altogether different event.
I'm just so proud. Nation states, countries, and an awful lot of the exchanges of power and justice and equality and money and culture and politics and society occur across those fault lines between nations. And the absence of a functioning international community, a true community of nations, is one of the biggest problems we have. So when people say to me, what's going on with the world, normally that's the way I say it. I said, we know what's wrong, we only have to look at the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals to see a pretty adequate list of all of the problems facing us. And many of them today are arguably existential. But the interesting thing is, it's not that we don't know how to solve those problems. It's not that we don't have the answers. We do have the answers. And most of my adult life, I've been lucky enough to work with people who are real professionals in those areas, real experts in climate change, real experts in conflict and human rights and all the rest of it. And almost all of them will say to you, we know what the problem is and we know how to fix it. So the problem is neither of those. The problem is actually changing the culture of governments. The problem is that the nation states don't cooperate and collaborate enough. So they never bring sufficient resources to bear in order to implement those fixes that we know are the fixes. So you take climate change. We know what we need to do in order to slow down climate change, perhaps even prevent what we're seeing, even though it's probably looking a bit late for that. But still, why don't we do it? Because the nations cannot agree on their common interest and a common approach. So what's really wrong with the world is not climate change or human rights or conflict or injustice or pandemics or nuclear proliferation or any of those things. It's the culture of governance, the fundamental culture of the nation state that says it's about competition, it's about GDP. The purpose of the nation state is to outdo other nation states. The purpose of a national leader is to seize as much advantage for his or her own people and own territory over other nation states. And that's what screws us up. That fundamental culture that nation states are about competition is the problem, because it's plainly suicidal. We live in a planet with limited, finite resources, and we can't all compete. It's not a situation where you have some winners and some losers. Either we all win or you all lose. So, just to summarize very briefly, a change in the culture of governance worldwide from fundamentally competitive to fundamentally collaborative. And that doesn't mean, oh, wouldn't the world be lovely if everybody was lovely? Why can't these foreign politicians be nicer to each other? It's not about self-sacrifice. The idea of a nation sacrificing itself for another nation is preposterous. That's never going to happen. It's not what nations are for. But the interesting thing is, and this is something I've been able to see through my work as a policy advisor, that actually if you do figure out how to mingle enlightened self-interest, national self-interest, with the commons, then you make better and better and better policies, both domestically and internationally. So what it's all about is harmonizing your domestic and your international responsibilities. If countries can learn how to do that, and some do it much better than others, which is what the country index tries to measure, if we can all figure out how to do that, then we will save ourselves.
Just like that. it resonates so much with me, everything that you say. But we do end up talking about countries as though they are people, and people are in countries, and it is literally people at a certain space that have a vested interest in keeping the status quo as it is. So how do you think we can change their minds or transform the way they are currently being for the good of the majority?
I think it's tremendous. Can I just start off by saying something quite fluffy? I think it's tremendously important for all of us, and especially those of a liberal/progressive bent, to learn how to respect the principle of conservatism. Conservatism is a fundamental trait of human nature. In fact, I've often argued that it's actually an evolutionary necessity. We all, on some level, trust things that we've done in the past more than the things that we might do in the future. And we all of us, at some level, trust the people that we feel we know best and who resemble us most, more than the people who we know less well. And that's simple self-interest. I mean, by definition, the things we did in the past didn't kill us, otherwise we wouldn't be here to be thinking about it. And therefore, logically, repeating the same things that we've always done is safer, logically, than doing new things. So it takes an enormous amount of confidence, perhaps even slightly unhinged confidence, to want to rush off and do things that you've never done before. And yet it is what we must do. But let's please try to put away this notion of conservatism and progressivism as being somehow mutually exclusive. Human beings are not whole unless they have both. We all, if we sit and think about it, can understand what it feels like to be attached to conservative values and principles. And we can all, if we sit down and think about it, understand what it feels like to be excited about the prospect of diversity and progress and experimentation and freedom and all the rest of it. Let's try and kill this lie that liberal people and progressive people have to make war against each other. We are all both of us. That liberal who you despise, that conservative who you despise, it's just you on a different level.
Yes. Yeah. It's understanding that we're all human beings, we're all in this world together, and we've got to work out a way of supporting and helping each other. I don't like this divisive, oh, you're red, I'm blue, you're black, I'm white. It's all, it doesn't matter, we're all in this together. And as you say, it's like, I was talking to somebody today about masculine energy and feminine energy, and he's like, there is no such thing. It's just this societal label that we've added into our thinking that we have to unpick to realise that let's start at square one. Let's look at the fundamentals of we're human beings on this planet, and we can get along. It's been proven. So how can we ensure that we can do the best for each other? How that works out.
Absolutely agreed, and it often occurs to me that this habit of tribalizing things, of sticking people in groups and defining them not according to who they are or how they behave, but the group that they belong to, it's ignorant and it's intolerant and it's annoying and it's stupid and all the rest of it. More than anything else, it's lazy. Lazy. Because it's so much easier and quicker, it's so much less trouble to divide the world up into 2 great big groups or 6 great big groups and say, nah, I know what you're going to say because you're group X. Or, I know why you say that, it's because you're group Y. And it's very unlikely to be true at any level when you say things like that. My gosh, it's easy. And it's so much easier than going to the trouble of trying to understand you, Jill Tynan, as an individual. Because that's a lot of effort. And yet that is what we must learn how to do. So one of the most profound weaknesses of the human species is our tendency towards lazy tribalism. And it comes in many different guises. A lot of the stuff that's packaged to us today as the most cutting-edge, progressive, liberal values is actually nothing more than just yet more tribalism. And we have to learn to see each other as individual people and to take the trouble to discover what makes us tick individually. Otherwise, we're lost.
So would you say that that's kind of the first port of call when we're looking at, like, what can I do? How can I make a difference? I'm just on my own. What can I possibly do? Which kind of I can hear you saying that's a bit lazy, just giving up. Oh, well, it's just little old me. I can't do anything, can I? What would you say would be a good starting point?
Well, there's a whole series of skill sets and positions on life within human society, of which that is just one example. And those are all skills that we all need to arm ourselves with. So I think the only really sensible and practical answer to the question, little old me, great big world, what can I do? Where lies my agency? Well, your agency lies with improving yourself. And improving yourself is a fundamental necessity because it's great that so many people want to help these days. It's great that so many people want to do something to fix the world. But I think we have to be a little bit cautious about the idea that you hear so much, it's enough that you want to help. Your goodwill is enough. It's not. This is a big job and we need to be skilled and trained to do it. So if you want to help make things work better, you have to get fit. And getting fit in all kinds of different ways. Now, I've always seen that as taking place at 2 levels and 2 ages. School children is obviously where you start. And one of the things that I've been banging on about for years and years is the necessity for some kind of global compact on fundamental values, even though values is of course a tricky word, but the fundamental values and skills that we all agree everywhere in the world, all our children need to have learned by the time they leave school. So that when they leave school, they can, like Greta Thunberg, they can run towards the world's problems instead of running away from them, which is what our generations as a whole tend to do. But then the other level is the rest of us who are no longer at school. And adult, ongoing, lifelong education can be very easily geared towards the skill sets that help us to be more useful to the planet, more useful to nature, more useful to society. That's one of the reasons why I've been involved with this wonderful NGO called the Inner Development Goals, which attempts to put together a kind of consensus framework of what is that fundamental basic skill and learning set that everybody needs. So a long answer to a short question, but I think that the question is get yourself fit. Find out where to go, find out what you need to learn and learn it.
I was very pleased when I checked out the Inner Development Learning Goals, that one of their learning goals is understand collaboration, and it just fitted perfectly. And I think once you understand who you are as an individual, what your purpose is, and what your mission is, and the reason you are here, and what legacy you want to leave, then you can move forward and collaborate more effectively. Because until you're collaborating without that knowledge about who you are it kind of gets broken halfway through, and you never actually get to the fruition of what you want to do. And one of the things we say at Collaboration Global as well is that once you've done your collaboration and it's a success, whether that be measured through the number of people that you've helped, the potential of other things happening as a result of it, or the money that you've made, you need to pay it forward. You need to pay forward what you've learned from that collaboration about yourself, about your team, about the skills that you had, about the skills that you developed, and help someone else and share it with them. Now, whether you share that for another monetary gain, that's fine, but also there's those opportunities to just give away what you've learned and what you have. And so many people are obsessed, in my opinion, around IP, and it's like, you can't take this is my IP. It's like, I think you'll find it's been around before. Unless it's an invention, like something, a new app or something. Generally, whatever's being invented for service-based industry is somebody has kind of thought of it on a different line. It makes it unique when it's yours, for sure. So understanding who you are before you collaborate is a great step. Now, the other thing about learning about who you are, that has a huge impact in business as well. And as I was saying earlier, that so many businesses in the UK and around the world are kind of the backbone of the economy, and we have the potential to have a lot of power and a lot of say to the great and the good that are running the organisation, running the country. Have you got any words of wisdom for business owners of how they could be growing and creating their businesses for their betterment of everybody?
I think businesses and management of businesses play a really fundamental role in this task of getting people fit, getting people ready to change the world, because it's so clear from so much research that's been done amongst employees over the last 20 or 30 years that no matter where you go, people expect more from their employment than just a salary and a desk basically. And what they're looking for is some sense of purpose other than purely financial. And so for a long time it's been obvious to employers that they need to have something really worthwhile to offer their employees if they want to attract the good ones and keep them. And so this is one of the reasons why the UN Development Goals, for example, treats corporations as one of their primary intermediate targets. If we want to reach 8 billion people, one of the best ways to reach them is via the workplace, because that's where they spend most of their waking lives. And they're asking for it on the whole. They're saying, what can we do that's useful, as well as just remunerative, just adding shareholder value. And one of the great things about this from the point of view of everybody really, is that getting yourself fit, learning those new skills and values, it benefits you as an individual. It makes you a better person. It makes you better at relationships. It makes you better at performing in society, getting on with other people. It improves your career prospects. It makes you smarter. You get to learn things and retain things better. All of these things that are within the UN Development Goals set, and pretty obvious things that include things, as you said, collaboration, but also things like critical thinking, which are so valuable and so fun to learn. The fact that if you learn them, you will also help save the planet is almost incidental. That's a kind of secondary thing. It's a secondary benefit. There are enough people did this. If most people in society did this, we would find society improving immeasurably. No doubt. But in the meantime, what we're doing is very much in your own interest as an employee, as a member of a family, as a member of society, and all the rest of it. So it's good for the companies, it's good for people. And yeah, by the way, you could save humanity what we're doing.
That's what they call the triple win. Win, 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 all round. That's a fantastic place to leave it, Simon. Thank you so much for spending the time with me today, just to kind of give us an idea of, we're not on our own, we can do these things, we can make a difference, and we can go out there and see the outcome of all the wonderful work we've done individually, but also the knock-on effect, the pay-it-forward effect that we can have for so many people. Thank you so much, really appreciate it.
Thank you, John.